right-wing provocateur Ann Coulter sure did make headlines when she suggested that she wouldn't vote for Ramaswamy because he's Indian.
Oh, and I agree with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president, but I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that.
Ann Coulter just said she wouldn't vote for Vivek Ramaswamy because he's Indian? I am so offended right now. Or at least, I would be offended if it weren't for the fact that I listened to the whole podcast. And it weren't for the fact that I happen to know Ann Coulter, her writing style, her style of wit and irony. And meanwhile, Vivek Ramaswamy took it in stride. Did Ann Coulter say something racist to Vivek Ramaswamy? My fact check says missing context. Here's a tweet from Vivek about the podcast he did with Coulter. Ann Coulter challenged me. I challenged her. This episode will challenge you. You're not going to want to miss it. So this shows that Vivek regards his exchange with Coulter to have been collegial and to have been a respectful exchange of ideas. And I believe it was, despite the comment of Coulter, which is getting so much attention. I believe it was a discussion of nationalism and ethnicity that was more highbrow than what you would typically get on cable news. Another part of the missing context is that Vivek Ramaswamy himself was being very edgy as he opened up the podcast before Coulter even came on. Ramaswamy said, "There's an N-word that you're not allowed to say anymore."
There's an N-word that you're not allowed to say anymore, but I'm going to say it.
And then he rather anticlimactically revealed that the N-word he's referring to is nationalism. So because Ramaswamy was being edgy, I think Coulter kind of came in with the edginess as well. And if you missed the beginning of the podcast, then it would tend to look like Coulter just out of the blue kind of insulted Ramaswamy. And I still think it was kind of insulting. However, later in the interview, Coulter kind of retracted that, and she said, maybe I would vote for you because Ramaswamy was expressing views that were so based. As part of her argument, Ann Coulter refers to Samuel Huntington's Who Are We? And that book also rather clinically lays out the argument that America has a uniquely white Protestant history, and that's reflected in our institutions. And Huntington suggests that, when you change that, it wouldn't be quite the same country. And speaking as someone who's not Protestant, who's not WASP, who's not Anglo-Saxon, I definitely get that argument, and there's probably some truth to it. Although, that's really just not the America that we happen to be in. And Ramaswamy is, part of the diversity that we have. Basically, both Coulter and Ramaswamy were arguing in favor of nationalism, but a different type of nationalism. Ramaswamy said that he believes in a civic nationalism without regard to race, whereas Coulter is suggesting that there is something unique in the ethnic mix of America, how it was founded, that makes us who we are, as per the title of the Samuel Huntington book. And Ramaswamy just respectfully disagreed with that. And of course he disagrees with it. I mean, for one thing, he wouldn't even fit into that vision of America, and many, many people wouldn't. So I thought the podcast was a very spirited kind of debate/conversation. The soundbite of Coulter making that outrageous statement is perhaps what drew more attention to it, and that's fine. So I would vote for Ramaswamy regardless of the fact that he's Indian. I think Ramaswamy does a better job than almost anybody articulating right-wing beliefs for a mainstream audience. So, but of course, Ann Coulter has her own place in the history of effective and funny conservative commentators. One of the smartest women writing, although she hates Trump, and I find that problematic. So, although Coulter is a never-Trumper, and although she says things that are very edgy, I tend to think that when you put this in context, it wasn't really meant as like a racist insult. It was meant as a flippant comment, which kind of foreshadowed the arguments that she later made in the podcast. I'm Michael McCara. Thank you so much for listening. Like this video if you liked it. Most importantly, do subscribe to my channel.